Okay, good afternoon. It is July 29th, 2025. This is Debbie Davis. Okay, so I'm going to continue to try to put links together for everybody to help understand why they're still after me, why there's still so much corruption. So, I mean, it all involves human trafficking or money laundering. And it has gone on for me since I uncovered one of the heads of the snake in Arizona. Arizona is the center of the deep state. Okay, and so what I touched on, I guess, involved, where a lot of it is centered from. Okay, but just today now, I've had, local police here, harass or they act like they're following me, I guess, you would say. And if you remember, back in 2017, there was an incident here in Apple Valley, Minnesota, a little bit south of the city, where there was a mysterious death of a film producer named David Crowley. Him and his wife and his daughter were found dead in Apple Valley, Minnesota in 2017. He was in the middle of producing a film called Gray State. Okay, he was only 28 years old. Okay, and what the Gray State was, could it be any more, obvious that you're trying to take somebody out for trying to tell us the truth? I mean, he was in the middle of producing this film called Gray State, and he was an up and coming film producer. Okay. Okay, 7 years ago. Filmmaker killed. Here's what he looked like. His name was David Crowley, very young, 28. Okay. This happened right here. This is a national story.
What is Gray State?
He's basically trying to warn us about,
Gray
a police
State is
state trying
less
to...
a movie than it is a warning.
A warning. Yeah.
We do not live in a dictatorship, but we do live in a police state.
Oh yeah, tell me about it. Don't I know that too well?
Is the unveiling of this Gray State foisted upon America. Americans believe that they can't do anything. And day by day, they're becoming correct. It's a game of numbers, and we're losing.
Okay, this was, he was trying to warn us. Obviously did his own research on what he felt was an agenda and try to do a whole movie about it. Okay. He was found mysteriously dead in his house here in Apple Valley in 2017. Okay.
And there's something about it that just kind of gets on you and you just can't wash it off.
Credibility means nothing to me. What I care about is truth.
The truth, yeah.
I don't think you're missing anything. The only thing you're missing is why.
Oh, yeah.
Producer who murdered his wife and daughter before taking his own life.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. You're right in the middle of producing this movie, and all of a sudden you just kill yourself.
New and disturbing details we've never heard before.
Can I sell you some oceanfront property in Minnesota while you're at it? Trying to, tell us this fake news on Fox 9 Minneapolis. Oh, yeah. Let's just kill ourselves in the middle of producing a really important film. But first let me kill my daughter and my wife, and then I'll kill myself. That sounds like a great idea, right? Can I sell you something else? Well, if you believe that, what else will you believe? Okay. I mean, clearly that's not what happened. You know, we all know this, but then they did a real cover-up story here, and the Apple Valley Police were involved in the cover-up. Okay, police state. Let me tell me about it. I've been illegally harassed by them nonstop, literally every day of my life since 2012. Literally every day of my life. So if you add up how many days that is, and how much money and time and effort that they have taken to try to harass me, it's millions and millions of dollars. Okay, so I obviously what I touched on in Arizona was huge. Okay, and so let me just put together more pieces of the puzzle. And I've talked about this before in different videos, and so I'm going to try to put it all together for it to make sense. And so when I moved back, originally when I moved back from Arizona, I was harassed here. It happened since 2013. Then I moved out to South Dakota. I bought a house there. I still have a house there, and it was fine at first. And then I started getting harassed there, and because I started asking questions and meeting people. There was a lady who was actually having whistleblowers come in and speak. It was really interesting. It was at the Civic Center in Aberdeen, and I met her. Her name was Sharon Furman from Action Network in Aberdeen, and I haven't talked to her now for years. I don't know what's happened with her. And then I met a state representative named Laura Hubble, and she started telling me some things. And so, there were some whistleblowers that Sharon Furman was bringing in. Some people involved in her network were actually paying them to fly in, and they had this guy named Phil Haney, the Homeland Security whistleblower, and I got to meet Phil Haney. We went out to eat afterwards. Phil Haney was a very very normal, credible guy, and he was murdered shortly after he came to Arizona to speak in Aberdeen. Okay, Sharon had brought him in. She brought a very interesting whistleblower named Annie Cyrus in, and she was amazing. Okay, so anyway, I was okay at first there, and then I started getting targeted there. And basically what happened was they felt that I was some kind of a threat, and basically it was just paranoia at first. Okay, I moved out there about 2017. It was paranoia at first, and then my neighbor Jimmy, that I got to know real well, he just tried to warn me of different things. He said, you might want to come out at night here in this town, just to let you know, because we don't really know what's going on, but there's a lot of traffic going on here. Okay, at night. That's really all it was. He didn't really know either, but it was basically just nothing more than that. And literally a couple weeks later, Jimmy Kolb ends up murdered in his home. Okay, I literally think it was just that's how paranoid they were. There was clearly some kind of a criminal operation going on at night. I wasn't paying any attention at all. This is McPherson County, South Dakota. Jimmy Kolb, fire. Okay, man dies in fire in South Dakota. Jimmy Kolb is his name. Okay. Okay. So that's what. So then this happens in 2017. Okay. House fire kills a 64-year-old man. So this happened December 5th, 2017. Man dies in house fire. December 5th, and I had just moved out there in 2016. Okay. It started with that, and then the way that and we all know that, he was warning me about a certain neighbor named Rodney Hoffman. that he was, he was the one who was warning me. He's like, just stay away from him, and that, this and that. I mean, and literally, I think it was, they murdered him, and I think it was just like, they thought it was a scare tactic. It was like a huge warning, and of course I did get scared, oh, but you have to murder somebody to try to scare somebody away, even though I wasn't a witness to anything. I wasn't paying any attention to your criminal operation. I sleep at night. I don't know what you're doing at night, but I was sleeping, but literally, I mean, this is how crazy they are out there in South Dakota. And then I had a whole slew of 9 sworn statements that I had gotten collected from other neighbors about Rodney Hoffman. 9 felonies that he had committed. So then he was getting real paranoid, right? Because I was collecting this stuff. And I just couldn't believe this is McPherson County, South Dakota, which is just a little bit north of Aberdeen, South Dakota. Okay, so then not only was he murdered, we see this, his body was found in the bathroom. There was glass inside the bathtub, where clearly somebody had broken in when he was found. His face was burnt, and then the house was set on fire. So it looked to us like he was burnt in the face with a fire extinguisher when he was taking a shower. He took a shower at night. Somebody had broken in the glass. It was a murder. The sheriff, Dave Ackerman, still to this day is trying to say that it was a fire, that he caused his own fire. The guy was found face down in his own bathroom with a burnt face. That's not an accidental fire. Can somebody, explain this to our corrupt sheriff, Dave Ackerman? That, clearly you're trying to do you were part of the murder and the cover-up, and we all know this. And then so I had been in Jimmy's house, because he was my neighbor and my friend, and he had a safe in there, and he had a key ring where he had all of his keys, for his vehicles. I mean, he had a large piece of land there, with tractors and all kinds of other vehicles. I believe they wanted his land. Okay, I believe, he was just kind of like a pain in their ass, basically, and and I think the land was valuable, and I think it was just, they thought it was just going to be an easy murder. They've done this before in South Dakota. They've done land grabs. They did this to some women who, Laura Hubble was telling me about it, that they did this to some women who owned some property that, was very, some mining area or something, I think near the Black Hills, near the Black Hills, and they gave them like pennies on the dollar, and basically they do like a land grab. And so anyway, the next morning after the fire, Jimmy's, not only did they kill him, but they set his entire house on fire. I wake up at 5 a.m, December, whatever it was, 5th, 2017, and I have the pictures on my phone of the fire, and the whole house is on fire, and it was only a few doors down from my house, and it took them like forever to get the fire out, and then when they finally did, we go in there when it was safe, and the neighbors and I, and look around, and that's when we saw, clearly that the one window was broken into. There was glass in the tub. The bathroom curtain was in the tub. That means that as he was falling, he had grabbed the bathroom curtain. That's clearly, like, it was clear scene of murder. And so my neighbors and I tried to do our own investigation and try to do, take our own pictures and things like that. And we have a federal lawsuit pending against this sheriff. It's right here. It's case number CV-03008-RAL in the United States District Court of South Dakota. It's a federal lawsuit, and they won't let us bring it to court. Okay, so we basically tried attempting to show this evidence to the sheriff. The evidence that we did, we said, we know this was a murder. You can't call it an accident. And then he had these some of the deputies come out and literally harass us just for trying to show him some evidence. He is a psychopath. He is a dangerous psychopath, this sheriff in South Dakota. His name is Dave Ackerman. Okay, and then so let me just explain then. When we were in there that morning to do our own investigation, December, whatever it was, 5th, 6th, December 17th, 2017, we noticed that the whole entire safe that he had in there, whatever it was, I don't know, documents, probably his will, right? And his keys to all of his vehicles were missing. So that means it was a premeditated murder. So that means that they murdered him, and then they went in and took, anything valuable, his safe, which would have had his will in it, and they took all of the keys to the vehicles, and that was found in the sheriff's office. Okay? Could it be any more obvious, Sheriff Ackerman? So all of that was missing. So that means it was a premeditated murder of Rodney Hoffman and Dave Ackerman, and to murder this guy. And because he did not have a will or anything, all of his property went into state probate, and then Rodney Hoffman and Sheriff Ackerman made money off of the state probate. It's called a land grab, and they did this to other people in South Dakota. Okay, so that's what it started out with. And then myself and this guy, one of my neighbors named Bruce, there was no dealing with this guy. He just wouldn't, he kept trying to call it an accident. He kept trying to harass us. So we tried filing a federal lawsuit. So here's the federal lawsuit. Well, you can't see it. Okay, see if you can. Okay, because we didn't trust the state courts, so then we tried to bring it to federal. And then Bruce got kind of scared. Literally, these people are dangerous. So we did a temporary withdrawal of the case, and then we tried to reopen it. Okay. Okay. Yeah, right here. Okay, so Bruce got scared, so we sent a letter to Judge Roberto Lang, and on 1/31/2019, we dismissed it with prejudice, which means you can open it again. Oh yeah, without prejudice. Okay, without prejudice, and he dismissed it with prejudice. No, we filed the paperwork to dismiss it without prejudice, which clearly meant that we wanted to reopen it, but just not at this time. Okay, then in 1/27/2019, I clearly stated it was to be dismissed without prejudice, and that I wanted to change my statement of claim, and I wanted to reopen the case. Okay, he would not reopen it. It was dismissed without prejudice, which means you can reopen it. This judge will not allow us to hear our case. And so literally we have murderers walking around in McPherson County. And that's not the only thing. And that's, and then we can't even We can't even, he won't even allow us to reopen the case, even though we paid $400 to file a federal lawsuit there. Okay, and we are afraid of our sheriff and the deputies involved in and these different people. There was multiple people in the county involved in the cover-up. Multiple. I mean, we just couldn't believe it. And so that's, just the level of corruption in our country is unbelievable. I mean, I have evidence. That's why I'm such a threat, is because I have the evidence. And then that's not the only person that's disappeared there in McPherson County. That's not the only death I'm concerned about. There's my so I won't play this whole thing right now, but there was a guy named Paul Register. Okay, he goes out to South Dakota and is interviewed by Stu Webb. So Stu Webb and I were friends, and Stu Webb was actually renting my house in McPherson County for a while. Okay, so so he has he had Paul Register on his radio show. Okay, and so this was 2023, and he was talking about the corruption in Arizona, and he was physically there in 2023 talking to Stu Webb about this at my house. Okay, then okay, you can, right here. So this was April 25th, 2023, and I believe he's had him on video. Yeah, he's right there with him. This is my house. This is, I don't know if you can see this, but he's...
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen.
Okay, he's at my house.
StuWebb.com, and it is...
This was at my house, and there's the...
2023.
Okay, it's him and Paul Register interviewed at my house. This is McPherson County, South Dakota. Okay, let's see if we can... Paul Register was never seen after this. Paul Register has never been seen after this. He didn't make it out of McPherson County, South Dakota. Okay, Paul Register has never been seen after April 25th, 2023. Okay, he was. I'm not saying Stu Webb is involved. I'm saying that I believe the sheriff is involved in his disappearance as well. He didn't make it out of. He didn't make it out of there. He was at my house. Paul and I were friends. Stu was renting my house for a bit, but then this happened and some other stuff happened between Stu and I kicked him out of my house. And so yeah, if you can look on Paul Register says has all kinds of information about stuff that's happening in South Dakota. He's a licensed social worker, and he worked at a place in Redlands called the Developmental Center, and he basically got really close to this one girl named Tawny Rockwell, who was just really abused there and wrongfully labeled as disabled. She wasn't disabled. She was very smart. And he's like, noticing that not only her, but other Indian children were labeled disabled when they weren't. And then he finds out literally there's a whole scandal going on where the federal government is getting $70,000 per Indian child. The federal government is giving the state of South Dakota $70,000 per Indian child that they call disabled, so they can purposely put them in these developmental centers, and they traffic them. They traffic the girls through there. Okay, like I said, it all involves money laundering and trafficking, and I'll play more of the of what Paul Register said later, but I just wanted to just give you a little bit of information, because it's so much. But then, that's not the only thing. I mean, so we got 2 murders in McPherson County now that are unsolved, and I'm afraid to go back there. And then on top of it, there was another weird thing that happened. This was in 2018 when I was still living there. I was coming back from Aberdeen, and then there was this fatal car accident. And the sheriff finally gets there after 30 minutes, and I was just leaving with everybody else. Like a month later, out of nowhere, he files. Apparently, there's some charge that's been filed against me. Said I was disorderly at the scene of that accident. I mean, I have the footage right on my phone. I took a little bit of footage and then I left with everybody else. Oh, if I was disorderly, then what about the rest of the crowd? Are they all disorderly? We were all just sitting there waiting for you to get there, and then we left. So if you're going to file a charge against me for being disorderly, then are you filing a charge against everybody else? And literally, I didn't even know there was a charge filed, first of all, okay? And I get pulled over and said there was a warrant through for my when I'm coming through Leola, South Dakota, about a month later, after I was a witness to this car accident. Okay, so he had not only filed a fake charge, but he had filed a warrant on top of it, not even giving me a chance for a court date or anything. I didn't even know there was a charge. And so I was pulled over by an unmarked sheriff, or a sheriff that I had not seen, like a vehicle that I had not seen, kind of like, what's going on here? And I said, oh my, I was freaked out, as you can imagine. And then he said, well, there's a warrant for your arrest. And I said, what in the world is this about? Oh, we'll come back to my car and I'll show you. And he literally tried grabbed my arm, and I fled, and then I called 911, and I said, I have no idea what this is about. And then they wouldn't even tell them at first. It was a state police 911 person, and she said, they're not telling me. And he's behind me, trying to pull me over, and I'm on the phone with 911, and she said, well, they finally told me it's just a disorderly. And I told them that they could just serve that to you. It's not a criminal matter, it's a civil matter. And she said they could just serve that to you and at your house, because it's a civil matter. And so she literally had to save my life, whoever this person was, on 911. And they finally got, didn't follow me anymore. But that's when I moved out of there. And I literally, after these 2 things happened, okay, well, that was actually before the disappearance of Paul Register. Paul Register, this was, whatever date this was now, like I said. So that was 2023 that he was there. Okay, so this was, when I got pulled over was 2018. And they tried making this charge up about me, and I've showed the footage to the state. I've showed it to the judges. I've showed it to the attorney general. They won't drop the charge. We're dealing with extremely dangerous, unreasonable people in that county. It's a very dangerous county, and we know that there's a lot of stuff going on right in this run road. It's called Highway 281. It goes right up into Canada. And I've been told that there's a lot of human trafficking that goes on right up through that road, because it just goes right up into Canada. Okay, so like I said, it all involves money laundering and human trafficking. It all involves those 2 things. But there's a lot more. There's a lot more going on in South Dakota, and I'll explain that in the next video. But and it all started with Arizona, and then so I will, at the end of this video now, I'm gonna just remind you to go look at the the video that I did of the links between Arizona and South Dakota. Okay, Debbie Davis. Okay, exposing the links between Arizona and South Dakota.
Like outside, it was glass.
Okay, this was 5 years ago I did this.
With water still in the tub.
Okay.
And the shower curtain.
Okay, so
it's pretty clear to me.
So you can look at my video, and I got a lot of this information from Laura Hubble. Okay, there's direct links between Arizona and South Dakota. There was a CEMEX plant in Tucson, Arizona, that was involved in, they're trying to do a cover-up, but it was involved in this child trafficking thing going on in Tucson. There's a big CEMEX plant there. The CEMEX plant in Arizona had been sold to Arizona by South Dakota. It was originally located in South Dakota, that exact CEMEX plant. Then there was a lot of links between the politicians. You can see a lot of pictures with John Thune, Mike Rounds, with John McCain, the senators in Arizona. There's a lot of pictures between Mike Rounds, the senator of South Dakota, John Thune, and John McCain, of Arizona. So there's links there. And so you can listen to that video, and then I'll explain more in another video. There's a lot. And it all involves, like I said, it all involves the money laundering and the human trafficking.